Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and More Wilds. Today we're talking more about Omega with useful interesting things you might not have known about that should help you with this pretty tough hunt. There's been a really cool progression of understanding for this monster, way more than any other new addition, so we've got lots to talk about. Let's begin. The first thing I'm going to say to kick this video off is obvious but important. Just make a build for Omega. Make an item loadout for Omega. Like, have the consumables that you need. All of them. Pop them before the hunt. And then, as you're going between areas, pop a new seed or multiple, get the defenses up, make it as easy and as forgiving as it can be for yourself. It's actually fine to take something that's really good, like a meta set, and slightly change it to be more defensive, even if it's something as literal, obvious and simple as slotting in some protection jewels to give yourself a bit of divine blessing. Level 3 would be ideal, but you can see I can only fit 2 here, so that's what I do. Instead, I could have more stamina generation, that'd be nice, but not dying when I get hit is just more important. A defensive build can completely change your ability to learn a fight that's tough the first time. Look at Josh with his immortal build. He went AFK against the Panto mode with that and didn't get carted with that silly thing. This results in a kill in 30 minutes, which is a lot better than maybe 5 attempts to get a 20-ish minute kill, because you're actually winning and you're actually carving at the end. So adapt your setup even slightly, especially when you're learning it for the first time. Let's talk about 2 great examples of this concept. Let's start with the discussion about the value of partbreaker in the Omega fight. In concept, partbreaker makes it easier to destroy monster body parts, like cutting off tails for monsters, but in Omega's case we'd be breaking off that leg armor. There's a lot of value there because you get to break the armor faster, you get that sweet DPS hit zone on the sensor, you get to control the fight. But there's this popular topic that I've seen talking about the whole huge increase to wound pop damage too, which is true. It will increase wound pop damage, but maybe not in the way that people think. The description here tells us that you increase part damage and damage dealt when conditions are met by 1%. So at level 1 that's 10%, 20% at 2, 30% at 3. The big problem here is that it actually only increases the last instance of wound pop damage for its animation, not the various hits during a focus strike. It doesn't actually matter then what weapon is popping that wound, it's just the pop damage that exists outside of that. So it could be a tiny weapon like dual blades popping it, it could be a big weapon like greatswords popping it. That aspect of the wound pop doesn't matter. Partbreaker does increase that specific damage though, by 30% at level 3. Here's footage of exactly that. The pop damage goes from 30 at Partbreaker 0 to 39, aka 30% increase with Partbreaker level 3. The wound pop itself is a percent of the health of the target. So the more health the target has, the bigger the wound pop. And yes, even bigger with that 30% increase. Considering the fact that Omega has a massive health pool, 100,000 in solo, 180,000 in any multiplayer setting, that percent's a lot more relevant against him than most monsters are a training dummy. And the fact that Omega generates so many wounds, even on the same part, be that leg, head or whatever, you get to do it many times during the fight, with the benefits of breaking the leg armor to get that DPS on the sensor as a little DPS period. There's plenty of argument for Partbreaker in that way. The problem is that each level of Partbreaker is hard to fit. You can see the decoration slot here, it's a 2 slot. But there's plenty of argument for kill security more than speed of kill that may be worth giving up slots for. If it does help you control the fight, minimize the scary parts, feel better in that way, then it's worth considering. Not to mention the potential extra materials. But yeah, I hope that overview of Partbreaker in the context of Omega was helpful. But now let's talk about Bale for the 4-piece in specific. 4-piece of Bale will give you the Blackest Knight, the shield that allows you to protect yourself against pretty much any attack, and then it explodes, you deal this big attack with the Greatsword Shadowbringer, all your health is gone, it's all red now, but you get to heal up through the attacks that follow. What this means is at key moments when you're about to tank like a beam to the face or get caught out, you could pop the shield and decide, no, I wasn't caught out at all. This is something you shouldn't ignore as a concept. It might be better than you realize. Did you know that some of the top speedrunners were using Bale 4-pieces, like literally the top hunting haul and run for example? Happy to take the benefits even of resentment of red health through their runs. That shield as a panic button during the fight is even important for them. Most commonly I saw it being used to tank and ignore the super beam to turn that into a DPS phase, letting them rush to the front and tank it and get straight back to DPS. Another example would be the switch axe top runner though, using it to ignore pretty much any relevant attack and then getting a window for a full release slash, which is usually hard in this fight because it's a long animation. This is all alongside a hyper focus on one foreleg, which These speedrunners are breaking in area 2, by the way, some of them making use of mind's eye or their slash damage to just focus the forelegs. But remember, that's in the context of true solo. If you want to make the fight easier for yourself, you want to play with support hunters or with other players that know what they're doing. And leaning into survivability goes a long way in the Omega fight, that's clear, even for the speedrunners. Here's a quick word on the super beam that occurs and a few ways you can deal with it. Did you realize that Longsword's special sheath counter actually has such intense iframes after the initial successful counter that you can then resheath and do the next one and do it again and again without actually taking damage between it, which is insane. So if you find yourself in a pinch with Longsword, you could just go for that repeat counter. This also works amazing with dual blades with the demon boost dodge, which can also be done over and over through the beam, also if you're in a pinch. The best option for this though is clearly the bow, since they get other benefits for the discerning dodge, such as generating gauge and restoring stamina when they do it, by the way. So yeah, they probably have the best version of this, and if you find yourself against the beam with any of those 3 weapons, it is an option. Now, if you are desperate to farm his parts because it's still a big endeavor, which is fair enough, it takes ages, don't forget that there are ways to enhance this, such as feast meals. You have the Zeus meal, which gives you carver. This allows you to carve an additional 1 or 2 times, so when I'm actually carving, it's basically giving me more chances to pull something. In that case, it can be those vital, more expensive items, the rarer drops. So I strongly recommend this if you're actually beating the monster. However, there's also the Suja meal, which comes with exploiter meal. It increases the rewards you receive for fully exploiting a wound. So basically, if you're breaking wounds, you're getting more drops. And yeah, I think in the Omega fight, we're breaking quite a lot of wounds, especially if you're engaging with the whole partbreaker thing. So for farming this fight, I'd recommend strongly one of those 2 meals for that purpose. Let's talk about the stalwart guard, which can be done by guarding with guard up 3 in this fight, as we mentioned last time, against the beam attacks. This can be like the split beams or the super beam, where you can get in there, hold guard, and do this special stalwart guard animation. Now there's been a lot of clips about this now, some awesome moments like this one, where this user, IECR, shows that they can tank the beam with that head on guard, taking some reasonable chip damage in this context. They take about 20% of the total health to do that, but it shows something I hadn't really considered, that the beam will stop as though it's hitting a wall, preventing the player behind them who got knocked down from taking any damage, saving their life in a really cool moment. But this rule applies to the beam with line of sight in general, so if you're hiding behind a wall or terrain, it won't go through. Think about the boulders you drop in area 3 and 4. They will leave behind a physical object, since this is related to dahaad and hiding behind something for his super. So those are the same rock drops, allowing you to hide behind them and avoid Omega's beam in a similar way. Just a thought. But let's talk about enmity and support hunters in general. Support hunter behavior is interesting. They actually engage with what you're doing. Enmity is so important in this fight, limiting the impact of the missile spam to just be on the person with aggro rather than everyone else. And so for that reason, and a few other aspects, it should really be maintained. Now when you're playing with other players, like a dedicated tank, that's not really going to be an issue. They'll be dealing with that and changing the fight through it. But with support hunters like good old Alyssa, sometimes she just doesn't have aggro for long stretches. That can really affect the consistency here. Now as it's being discussed more commonly, support hunters try to match what you're doing to facilitate you. And if you've never experienced this, try go hit the head, intentionally generate enmity while Alyssa's functional, and no one's got enmity at the time. You'll find in moments she'll come blasting up to the head with one goal in mind, stealing that enmity from you. The most obvious example of this is when you enter area 4, you need to get control of the fight as soon as possible. It's better that anyone has enmity here than no one. And if you're using support hunters, then you're going to be rewarded for rushing up and getting that aggro early, because Alyssa should come in and take it off you quickly. Then repeating this through the final area will change that experience that can be a nightmare when the missiles start flying and the lasers are going at the same time because of panto mode. Quick reminder as well, you can use the signal command to draw the support hunters to your location, which is relevantly used in area 2 where there's 2 boulders to drop. That makes that area a lot faster. Another source of enmity is the soul of the Pictomancer spells. If you aim this into the face, it can be a big source of enmity generation in a pinch. giving you quick aggro build-up, maybe at the start of Area 4 or whenever, which is nice. But don't forget that it does a huge hit in one hit. So don't ignore the use of these spells, get them going as much as possible, and if you can, cast the Mog of the Ages into Omega as many times as you can throughout the fight. What about the topic of support hunters for output? What's the reality of that? Well, if you don't know, DPS mods for Monster Hunter have been a thing for a while with PC versions of the game, like back in World. I'm not a huge fan of them, they can create some pretty toxic behavior, but there was an interesting post on Reddit by the user Mancario19. They show themselves on the DPS meter alongside the support hunters, Mina the SNS hunter, Kai the hunting horn user, and Alyssa the lance user. This shows the player did about 50% of the total damage in this hunt, while the support hunters did the other half together. That's how impactful they are. This also shows us that Alyssa's output is very low, while Mina's is relatively high by comparison. But don't forget that Alyssa's super helpful to the fight, with enmity being so important. So there's an example of how the DPS meter doesn't show you the true worth of someone. But it does show you that Mina's insane for DPS here and well worth bringing if you're not. But Kai shouldn't be ignored either. Hunting on with all its buffs, the echo bubbles, the protection it provides from the rocket punches, god it's good. But I found this interesting to look at either way. This continues into something Josh mentioned to me. We had a video testing their use, and we had support hunters literally solo normal Omega. In this case, you don't have to attack a single time, you just have to survive while they kill the monster for you. That's an extreme case, but it is a good reminder that in Area 4, when things are going crazy, you can just run around and survive for a bit and let the support hunters do the damage that they're gonna do. Next, I want to cover the topic of thunderpods and how they can interrupt Omega. I've seen quite a few clips of this on Reddit discussing it, and I do want to cover it. Basically, what we're seeing is this. They're using the thunderpods that exist like in Area 2 and 4 to shoot the center on top that's normally out of reach. It's nice because ideal element damage and, you know, output. But we're seeing cases where it causes this mini interruption, like in this case, interrupting the cast of Mustard Bomb. But you can use it during other things like the missile spam, where it'd be more useful. But we want to be aware of how this actually works, right? The idea is that thunder damage seems to cause this interruption. Not necessarily thunder pods, but you want to be aware that the first time is going to be easy. The second interruption will need a lot more pods and more after that, so it becomes very unreliable. Try to use this in a pinch, or save the concept for the final area, like saving Mount for that period too. But the pods can be useful, just make sure you're shooting the sensor, ideally. Lastly for today, we put out a video about a support focused SNS set, the idea of having wide range and the healing dust and free meal and just playing to keep other people alive, focused heavily on popping those dusts the moment someone starts getting hit by combos and preventing them carting. This is an absolute gift when playing in multiplayer. Maybe you're doing SOS hunts with others. It can really force a success, and people really appreciate if you're that person in the hunt. So check out our set for that. But yeah, there you have it. Those are just some of the bigger important topics for dealing with Omega that I wanted to talk about based on my experience lately. So hopefully it's helpful to you guys too. If you guys have any more info on these topics or other Title Update 3 focused things that people might not know in general, please let us know in the comments. But until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.